Hi guys, I know I'm in the middle of currently doing my top 20 countdown, but I wanted to do a really quick review of a movie that I saw last night. I know I've posted a review for the movie Grave Encounters, and in that review I gave it a fairly, I wouldn't say glowing recommendation, but I felt like for a found footage movie, I think it had an interesting concept, and for the low budget that it had, I thought it was really well done. So I watched Grave Encounters 2 last night. I saw it with a buddy of mine who I saw the first one with, and both of us liked the first one. We basically had the exact same opinion on the first one. While we were watching the second one last night, and we're watching from opposite sides of the country, like I live in Toronto, he lives in Vancouver, and we're watching this over Skype. Every so often, we had to pause the movie because there were just so many moments in Grave Encounters 2 that I could not believe were in the movie. And I guess my general opinion of this movie that I have to say right now is it does not compare to the first one. And I know a lot of people really don't like the first movie. They thought it was a really bad horror film or something. But again, I thought it was interesting. I thought it had a good concept. So I guess I better start from the beginning. Of course, spoiler warning as I do with all my reviews. So the movie starts off with a whole bunch of YouTube reviews of Grave Encounters, and then it focuses in on this guy who is our protagonist. He's an internet reviewer as well. So he posts a video, and then it goes into like Halloween, and they show how douchey all his friends are because they show photos of him on Halloween getting teabagged, and they post them on Facebook. You have really douchey friends, you know that? He's also trying to be a horror film director, like he wants to change the face of horror film. And then they cut to his student film, his thesis film, which is so cliched and so terrible that it just makes him look like a total asshole. He looks so pretentious. He looks like, oh, I'm going to change the face of horror. And then he shoots the most cliched horror film that you can possibly imagine, right down to cheerleader and the jock in a car making out. And so basically he gets caught up in the first Grave Encounters movie, and he starts to believe that the movie was real and that, the people actually went missing and all that kind of stuff. And so he all of a sudden starts to get skeptical because there's a YouTube account that's posting videos of Lance in the asylum. It looks like as if there's footage that's still recording him, and it's somehow getting put online. And so this kid contacts the person who has the account. Their YouTube name is Death Awaits. Basically, he lures him to Vancouver, Canada, which is where the first movie was shot, and wants to meet him at 3 a.m. in the West Tunnel. I don't think you could have stupider protagonists. I mean, why would you agree to meet somebody in the middle of the night that you've never seen their face? They have no name of this person, like they don't know their real name. It has trap written all over it, and yet the protagonists are stupid enough to go. Our protagonist goes down to LA at some point because he's trying to get an interview with the producer of the first Grave Encounters movie, and he basically gets an on-camera confession that the first Grave Encounters movie was real. This guy basically flat out tells him, yeah, all that shit that happened, it's real. But what are you gonna do about it? You have no evidence on me. And the scene pretty much following that interview, they're basically like, we need proof. We have to go there. We have to get proof that this actually happened. I'm like, you have proof! The producer just confessed on camera that this shit happened and it's real. And it's like, any normal sane person would be like, let's take this to the police. We'll take it to the cops and they can do an investigation. They can find out what happened. The evidence is there. And yet they're like, oh no, we need proof. We need evidence. I'm like, you fucking idiots. You have proof. They just need to find a way to get them back to the insane asylum in Canada. That's the stupidest thing I've heard, to try and get the protagonist from one place to another to get them to where they need to be. It's so contrived. The one thing I really liked about Grave Encounters in the first movie was that the acting was hammy when it needed to be, when they were doing their, on-screen personas. But in this movie, it's blatant. When these characters are trying to be scary, or they're trying to be intimidating, or when they're trying to act scared, it does not work. It fails miserably. Again, something that the first movie did really right was, for the first half, nothing really happens. They adequately build up the tension in the first half of the movie, and you're just kind of like, it's just winding you up, and then halfway through they ramp it up. The thing is, we were given enough time period to get to know these characters and to sympathize with them, especially with the cameraman in the first one. We got to hear that he has a family. I mean, he has a kid. It makes him really sympathetic. In this one, There's a girl that shows up when they're going to Canada. I didn't even know what her fucking name was. I had no idea who this chick was. Where the fuck did she come from? What's her name? Why is she with them? We are given no information on this girl. Also, our protagonist is a douchebag. His best friend is a douchebag. His girlfriend is a whiny bitch who's self-absorbed. And the cameraman is basically the ethnic quota. Instead of it being a black cameraman, we have an Asian cameraman. There's another thing that really bugs me about this movie is that in the first half of the movie, they constantly cut in jump scares from the first movie. Rather than coming up with their own jump scares for the new movie or building up the tension like they should be, they have 2 or 3 jump scares in the first half of the movie that are basically just them watching the first movie, but it happens so suddenly that you're kind of like, what the fuck was that? And then you realize, oh, they're watching the first movie on a TV or on their computer, or in one of the ones they're inside the insane asylum and they're actually starting to shoot what they're going to be filming. It's a lot like Grave Encounters in the first one, and they're basically holding up an iPad to the camera with one of the scenes from the movie, and it's so cheap, and it's so frustrating too, because I would pause the movie with my friend and you know, because we would talk about something, and then I would hit play in a moment where you would never think there would be a jump scare that would come up. I hit play, and immediately after I hit play, jump scare. It more annoyed the living hell out of me. This is the type of jump scare I absolutely hate, when it's not earned. And that's why I don't agree with people who say that Sinister is just a jump scare movie. I highly disagree. Sinister earned those jump scares. It earned the right to be able to scare you like that, and it made you scared. This just annoyed the living fuck out of me. Also, the kids are stupid enough to use a Ouija board that's in the basement. I'm like, you idiots. And that's when they find out that, you know, Death Awaits is a ghost. Apparently a ghost is uploading videos onto YouTube. I don't fucking understand how that works. Really? Ghosts are uploading videos on YouTube. What? Now, getting into stuff I actually liked about the movie. Once you got about halfway into the movie, that's when stuff started to actually get a little bit interesting. Although, for the most part, once they get into the insane asylum, stuff pretty much happens beat for beat what happens in the first movie. They get separated, they try to go after the cameras. Asian guy gets pushed out of the window, so he's the first one to go. One smart thing that they do is that they prepare for their situation, so they have air horns. So if they get separated from each other, they just blow the air horn and they'll come running, and that actually works at some point. And I'm like, wow, that actually was really a smart idea. I will say that the special effects are a lot better in this movie than they were in the first movie. And I'm referring to a couple of scenes in particular, like the girl whose name I have no clue what her name is. She's the second person to die, and she has an on-screen death, where they basically just rip off the shot from Quarantine, and it's even in the green night vision. And she's like right up against the camera, and something is like crushing her head, and when she dies, all you see is this little indentation of her head, and blood starts coming out of her eyes, and you know, her orifices. I thought that was a really well done shot. I'm just like, that was pretty cool. Other than the fact it completely rips off Quarantine, I liked that one. There's also a security guard who is basically trying to get the kids off the property, and he at some point finds them inside the building, but then they get separated because he's going to investigate to see if there's anybody else in the building because they're hearing all these noises. He gets lost, and they find him again, and he has the most brutal death in the movie. The special effects for the security guard's death was brutal. Like, his acting and the makeup that they had on his face and for the stuff in his mouth, you know, it was so harsh because he's being electrocuted. He's just being pumped full of electricity. And it was so hard to watch. They turn off the machine and they think he's dead, but then he pops up and they're trying to get him out of it. And then the machine just starts up again and he bursts into flames. That's how he dies. I'm like, that was well done on those special effects. That was a really good death in terms of special effects. Another thing that I really like about this movie is it has a twist. Close to the end of the second act, they actually get out of the insane asylum. They make it out. And it's just the three of them now, and they run out to their car, they drive back to their hotel, and they pack up all their stuff, and they're going down the elevator in their hotel, and then the doors open up back into the tunnels at the insane asylum. I will admit, that's a good twist. They find Lance. Like, this movie takes place 10 years after Grave Encounters supposedly takes place, and Lance is still in the building. He's absolutely insane, and he's mapped out the building so he knows how it changes and how it morphs itself. he's like, oh, there's only one door I've never been able to get out, and it's this big red door. So they're trying to find the bolt cutters that they brought with them in the building, in order to take the lock off that's over these red doors. But the red door, it's just like a freestanding door. But Lance thinks, that's the way out. That's the way we're going to get out of here. Lance ends up killing the douchebag, who's been a douchebag this whole movie. Like, again, they don't try to make their characters sympathetic. They don't give an explanation as to why he acts this way. Is it some sort of defense mechanism? Is it just something he does when he's stressed out? No, it's just he's a douchebag right up until the moment before his death, when he goes into a bathroom stall to do basically like a confessional Blair Witch style. That's the only time you will ever feel sympathy, and it's a cheap way to try and get your sympathy for a character that has been an ass the whole time. I'm sorry, I was happy when he died. When Lance comes in and bashes him over the head and then strangles him to death, I'm like, go, yes, thank you, Lance. And the reason Lance is doing this is because the ghosts want him to finish the film. He has to collect all the tapes, and so he's going to kill the film students to get all their tapes together, and so he can leave. He starts attacking them and all that kind of stuff. He takes the tapes, and the ghost is now following Lance around with the video camera, so it's really weird. It's like, okay. We're so used to seeing the creepy, distorted faces, and yet when it comes to the cameras, they're just sort of floating by themselves. For some reason, the physical manifestation of the ghost is far scarier to me. I think it's just because at that point in the movie, we'd already had multiple of those ghosts show up. You had a really creepy girl who's like brushing her hair. She's like, do you want to play? And then all of a sudden, like, her face goes all creepy and distorted. I think that little girl's the creepiest one in the whole movie. So Lance is basically trying to kill the kids to get the tapes, and then all of a sudden the gate to hell opens up, and just all of a sudden black hole to hell just pops up in the wall, and Lance gets pulled into it. I don't understand, but alright. So then our protagonist, Alex, gets the idea in his head of what Lance was saying, finish the film and you have to collect all the tapes. And so he kills his girlfriend, he bashes her head in with the camera, very Last Exorcism style. Like, basically I'm just listing found footage movies that this movie keeps ripping off. They're like, oh, that's a shot from Quarantine, or oh, that's a shot from Blair Witch, or oh, that's a shot from Last Exorcism. They're not coming up with anything new themselves, they're just recycling found footage movies. Alex kills his girlfriend, he walks through the red door leads out to this cornfields in the middle of nowhere, and then cut to the producer and Alex sitting side by side in a film studio and saying, oh, here's Grave Encounters 2. Yeah, of course it's all fake. Of course none of this is real. Of course, that's when you realize that the parents of these college students are probably going to be wondering what the fuck happened to their kids. It's not like Grave Encounters 1 where some of the people mysteriously just disappear. These people had very visible deaths. All of them died on screen. There's nothing you can really say about that. These kids got killed on screen, and yet they're claiming it's fake, but their parents are going to wonder what the fuck happened to them. Obviously, there's going to be a police investigation. But basically the point of this is that the ghosts want Alex to get more people to come to the insane asylum. That's apparently what their big plan is that they just want more people to come. It's not very well explained. It's a very weird ending. It's like, it's strangely defined because the ghosts seem to be very specific about what they want, but at the same time it's not specific enough. We don't have enough information to really understand what they're doing or why. And again, YouTube! The ghosts have a YouTube account. Like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. I can't recommend this movie, even if you're a person who liked the first movie. It's mainly a rehashing of the first film, for the most part, except instead of somewhat interesting characters that with some hammy performances that kind of made it entertaining in the first one, you have incredibly unlikable characters who are stupid, absolutely stupid, because they have evidence that this thing actually happened in the first movie. In this universe, the first movie actually happened. They have evidence it happened, and yet they're going to go into the insane asylum to try and get evidence. I'm like, you fucking morons. Again, I liked the first movie, but for the most part, we could predict what was going to happen. Just both of us could not stop. Every so often, we just keep pausing the movie and just rant for like 5 minutes straight. It's a terrible sequel to what I thought was a good first movie. I'm just kind of ashamed because I was really looking forward to seeing this movie for a while. I'm sorry, it's really not that good. Rotten Tomatoes currently ranks it at 14%. I don't know if I would go that low, but it's definitely like a 30% or something, 30 to 35. It's certainly not very good. That's pretty much it for now, you guys. I'm gonna go get some homework done, so I'm gonna talk to you later. Peace.